Get ready for another terrifying story. You know that feeling of being watched? That's how João felt every night. He lived alone in an old house, full of stories and whispers. The neighbors always said the house had something strange about it, but he never paid attention. Until that night. It was a cold night, typical of winter. João had just gone to bed when he heard a strange noise coming from downstairs. It was as if something or someone was moving the furniture. He tried to ignore it, thinking it was just his mind playing tricks on him. After all, the house was old and creaked frequently. But the noise didn't stop. On the contrary, it seemed to get closer. With his heart racing, João decided to investigate. He got out of bed and, with a flashlight in hand, slowly descended the stairs. Each step creaked, adding to the tension in the air. When he reached the living room, he noticed everything was in its place. Maybe it was just the wind, he thought. But then, a faint whisper echoed down the hallway. It sounded like a woman's voice, soft but filled with sadness. João froze. It was impossible. He lived alone. Trying to stay calm, he followed the sound. The whisper was coming from the basement. The basement door was ajar, something he was sure he had closed before going to bed. With the flashlight trembling in his hand, João fully opened the door and descended the dark steps. The basement was damp and smelled of mold, with old boxes piled up and furniture covered with sheets. At the back of the basement, a pale figure stood with its back to him. It looked like a woman, with long, disheveled hair and a dirty, tattered nightgown. The whisper continued, but now he could make out some words. "Help me. Please." João tried to speak, but his voice came out shaky. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" The figure turned slowly, revealing a cadaverous face with sunken, empty eyes. "You need to help me," she repeated, extending a skeletal hand toward him. With a scream, João ran back to the stairs, but the basement door slammed shut. He was trapped. Desperate, he began pounding on the door, shouting for help. But there was no one to hear him. The whisper was now right beside him. "You can't escape." He turned and saw the figure floating in the air, getting closer. In panic, João grabbed an old screwdriver and held it out in front of him, as if he could fend off the ghost with it. "What do you want from me?" he shouted. The woman stopped, her expression of sadness turning into a malevolent smile. "I need company. I've been alone here for so long." João felt a pressure on his chest, as if something was sucking the life out of him. His vision began to darken and he fell to his knees, the screwdriver falling from his hand. The whisper was now inside his head, filling his mind with a deadly chill. The next day, the neighbors noticed João hadn't left the house. They called the police, who broke down the door and found the house empty, except for an inscription on the basement wall. "Now he is with me." The house was sold again, but they say that at night, you can still hear João's whisper, pleading for help. And the new resident? Well, he also started to feel that sensation of being watched. Months had passed since João's disappearance, but the house did not remain vacant for long. A young couple, Lucas and Mariana, bought the property at a surprisingly low price. They were excited about the idea of living in a big, albeit old, house. Mariana loved the rustic charm, and Lucas, a declared skeptic, did not believe in superstitions. On the first night, while unpacking, Mariana found an old screwdriver in the basement, covered in dust and partially rusted. "Lucas, look at this. It seems someone left it here," she said, showing him the screwdriver. Lucas shrugged. "Probably just a worker who forgot it. No big deal." However, on the second night, strange noises started echoing through the house. It sounded like light footsteps, almost inaudible, but enough to wake the couple. "Did you hear that?" Mariana asked, sitting up in bed. "It must be the wood creaking. These old houses always make noises," Lucas replied, trying to calm her. The sounds continued in the following nights, getting louder and more disturbing. Lucas began to feel uneasy, although he tried to remain calm for Mariana. One night, while going downstairs for a glass of water, he saw a shadow moving down the hallway. He stopped, rubbed his eyes, and the shadow disappeared. I'm imagining things, he thought, but the feeling of being watched never left him. Mariana, on the other hand, started having frequent nightmares. She dreamed of a pale woman with sunken, empty eyes, whispering to her in the dark, "Help me, please." She would wake up in a cold sweat, feeling a presence at the edge of the bed. "Lucas, this house is driving me crazy," she said one morning, visibly shaken. "Maybe we should find a medium or something." Reluctantly, Lucas agreed. He did not believe in ghosts, but he was willing to do anything to calm Mariana. They found a local medium, Dona Clotilde, who agreed to visit the house and conduct a séance. On the appointed night, Dona Clotilde arrived with her tools: candles, incense, and an old book of spells. "This house has a very heavy energy," she said as soon as she entered. "There is something here that does not want to leave." Gathered in the living room, they turned off the lights and lit the candles. Dona Clotilde began chanting in an ancient language while the incense burned, releasing a thick, fragrant smoke. "If there is any spirit here, manifest yourself," she commanded. The air grew cold and the candles began to flicker. An invisible breeze passed through the room, and then the whisper, "Help me, please." Mariana gripped Lucas's hand tightly. "She is here," said Dona Clotilde, "the spirit of a woman trapped between this world and the next. She needs help to find peace." Trying to be rational, Lucas asked, "What can we do to help her?" Dona Clotilde closed her eyes and murmured something inaudible. "She needs her body to be found and properly buried. Only then can she rest." Following Dona Clotilde's instructions, Lucas and Mariana began investigating the house's history. They discovered that, decades ago, a woman named Elisa had mysteriously disappeared. She was the house's former owner, and her body was never found. Armed with this information, they began searching the basement. After hours of digging, they found a secret compartment under the floor. Inside, Elisa's remains were buried along with an old diary. In the diary, Elisa recounted how she had been imprisoned and left to die by her own husband, who wanted to get rid of her to be with another woman. With Dona Clotilde's help, they arranged a proper funeral for Elisa. They prayed for her soul and buried her remains in the local cemetery. After the funeral, the sense of presence in the house vanished. The noises ceased, and Mariana's nightmares stopped. Life returned to normal for Lucas and Mariana. The house, now free of Elisa's unsettling presence, became a cozy and safe home. But occasionally, at night, Mariana still thought about Elisa and her tragic fate, feeling a strange connection to the woman who had finally found peace. Although the sense of presence had disappeared, Lucas and Mariana did not forget the experience they had lived. They decided to keep Elisa's diary as a reminder of what had happened. Sometimes, at night, they would sit together to reread its pages and reflect on the life of the woman who had suffered so much. One night, while flipping through the diary, Mariana found a page she hadn't noticed before. It was a letter written by Elisa, addressed to anyone who found her diary. In it, Elisa expressed her gratitude to whoever freed her from her torment. She also mentioned a hidden secret in the house, something her husband never discovered. Curious, Lucas and Mariana decided to investigate once more. Carefully, they examined every corner of the basement until they found a small hidden compartment in the wall. Inside was an aged wooden box. Upon opening it, they discovered a collection of old and valuable jewelry, likely belonging to Elisa. There was also a letter explaining that these jewels were to be used to help someone in need. Emotional, the couple decided to sell the jewelry and use the money for a good cause. They chose to support a local shelter for women victims of domestic violence, honoring Elisa's memory and helping other women find safety and a new beginning. From that moment on, Lucas and Mariana felt the house had a greater purpose. It wasn't just a place to live, but a symbol of resilience and hope. They began receiving visits from people interested in the house's story, sharing their experience and the importance of listening to and respecting the whispers of the past. And so, João's house, now the home of Lucas and Mariana, became a refuge of peace and inspiration, where Elisa's tragic past was transformed into a source of strength and solidarity for all who entered. At night, When the cold breeze softly blew through the windows, Lucas and Mariana knew that Elisa was finally resting in peace, grateful for her liberation and the legacy of kindness she left behind. Watching another Dark Tales video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so